You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 256, Emotional Resilience, a Calm Response to Adversity with Robin Hills. If you're a business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve time management, and elevate productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I'm looking forward to you meeting our guest, Robin Hills. Robin is the Director of Ei4Change, a company specializing in educational training, coaching, and personal development focused around emotional intelligence, positive psychology, and neuroscience. He has taught over 300,000 people in 195 plus countries how to build resilience, increase self-awareness, and understanding of others. His educational programs on resilience and emotional intelligence cover the most comprehensive and detailed education of any emotional intelligence organization and are today used in educational establishments in South Africa and India. Robin is the author of 2 books and has, through his work, developed the experiential coaching methodology of resilience to support cathartic conversations around resilience. He has delivered keynote speeches at 2 conferences across the world, including Harvard University, and sits on Northwest Committee of the Association of Business Psychology. Well, based on that intro and bio, I bet you can know why I am speaking to him about emotional resilience. He is the guy. I did research and I just thought he would make a great guest, and he did not disappoint. I was literally left at the end of this interview with my jaw dropped at just the wisdom and the insights and honestly just a great connection and conversation. So I'm so glad you get to listen in. Robin and I discuss what emotional resilience is and is not, the importance of parking tough decisions, how to acknowledge your emotions without letting them rule, some common myths around emotions, what mindfulness really is and why it's important, and so much more. And now let's meet our guest and get to the straight talk. Hi, Robin. Welcome to Productivity Straight Talk. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Amber. Thank you. And it's great to be on your show. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
So am I. I think this is such a timely conversation right now, but always, because I'm always about the mindset and emotional intelligence and resilience, but especially right now. But before we dive into emotional resilience and your specialty, why don't you share with our audience a little bit about you that we didn't hear about your official bio? And I also want to know, when you were a kid, did you grow up and want to be a specialist in emotional resilience? What got you here?
Well, it's an interesting question because when I grew up as a kid, resilience was well known, but it was well known as a property in material science. And that's where the word resilience has come from. It's only in the most recent years that we've applied it to human psychology. So I certainly didn't grow up with this idea, I must specialize in resilience and emotional resilience.
Right. But somewhere around your past. So what took that turn for you that this is your specialty?
Well, I think the turn came around probably the mid-90s, the early 2000s, when I realized that my specialty was involved in working with and helping people to develop. And I started to look at ways in which I could work with people more efficiently and more effectively to understand them better And I recognized that I had a very strange quality that a lot of other people didn't possess. Now, whether that came from genetics or upbringing or environment, I've got absolutely no idea. But all the personality and behavioral assessments were showing that I had very, very high levels of resilience, very low levels of neuroticism, to the point where it was so extreme, a lot of organizations felt threatened by it. So I would often go along for job interviews and various opportunities that would open up to me. And I would take a psychometric and I would get the feedback, oh, you're a bit too laid back, you're a bit too calm. And yeah, if you look at that scale, you look at that measure, that's correct. But what they overlooked was how all the other scales blended in so that I worked with it. So I was in this kind of strange situation whereby whenever adversity was thrown at me, I kind of calmly react around it. Perhaps not in good ways sometimes, but that was the way I reacted to it. And it got to the point where my wife has said and will say that if anything goes wrong and Robin starts to panic, we need to start to panic.
I understand that. My husband is very similar. He is cool, calm, and collected all the time. And we've been together for over 20 years. And there's a few times where I'm like, oh, there's something bleeping on the screen. Like that means something's really not okay. Because if anything went wrong, I'm like, he's the person I want to be around because he can think, he can process, he's cool, calm, and collected. And that is a skill set that's really important. I've learned a lot from him from that. And I'm really excited for our listeners to learn some of that. So while it may have come more natural to you, you've now created, I assume, strategies and processes that people can learn this skill set. Is that correct?
Almost certainly. I am now an emotional intelligence coach, trainer, and facilitator. And in terms of the work that I do, I'm actually helping people to cope with the current situation that they find themselves in and to plan for the future and to look at ways in which they can engage with the environment more successfully, which involves emotions. It involves emotional management, emotional awareness, emotional control, and it involves resilience.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad you touched on a little bit of all of that. How do you define emotional resilience?
Well, let me start off by defining emotional intelligence, and then I'll go on to talk about emotional resilience, because I think if I do it the other way around, everybody will get confused. Emotional intelligence is the way in which we combine our thinking with our feelings in order to make good quality decisions and build up authentic relationships. It's a very easy statement and definition to say and to put across, but it's very, very, very difficult to do. So how does emotional resilience fit within that? Well, interestingly enough, resilience doesn't fit within the components of emotional intelligence. However, what is involved with resilience is the ability to work with and manage emotions and to put emotions to good use when faced with challenging situations, to make good decisions and build up authentic relationships. So if we look at a good definition of resilience, let's get it away from material science.
Yes.
So it's not bouncing back, it's not returning to your original shape after some force has been applied, which is the definition from material science. It's actually having a very clear, focused definition around where it is you want to go with your life. It's having an understanding that life is meaningful and having a core set of values that will allow you to work towards that vision and have the adaptability and the flexibility to adapt as situations change, because situations will change and you can't plan for them.
Yes. I 100% agree with that. I have a son and he's 12 and he's done affirmations since he was young. We have a whole episode here. If anyone's interested, you can go back and listen. But one of the affirmations that he said since he was young is that I adapt and overcome. And for my husband and I, it was so important that like no one can be prepared for everything that comes. But if you have a true belief that you can handle anything that's going to come your way, because it surely will, that's going to serve him well. And I wish that my husband or myself was taught that as a young kid, right? Like we kind of had to learn that through hard knocks and figuring it out, that there's some core beliefs about ourselves and core ways that we can show up that do make things that are outside of our control often feel like we can really move through them.
Yes, and I think a lot of emotional resilience is knowing what it is that you can control. And the only thing that you can control is yourself. Mm. You can control the way in which you express yourself within the environment. You can control the way in which you adapt around the circumstances as they unfold. Now, you might not necessarily like what's happening, but you've got to make a decision. And ultimately, you might not like the decisions you have to make.
That's right.
You have to make one of those decisions and kind of work with it. You're going to get it wrong sometimes. Sometimes you're going to get it right.
Yeah, I was actually just talking with a friend via Voxer. It's like an audio messenger right before we met here today. And we were just both talking about, because we both work with other business owners, and we were just talking about this overwhelming slowdown that everybody's feeling right now. Things are kind of stagnant. There's so much uncertainty. And what I had told her was, I'm so grateful that I have a different perspective in this season of my business, that this is just a season. Because when things have slowed down in the past, I wasn't as managing my emotions. Okay. Right. Like you're like, the sky is falling. What's going to happen? Kind of set into panic. And what she had said was like, yeah, I'm seeing it for what it is. And I'm going to use this time to build my business and do some of the things I didn't have time for when we were really busy. Great perspective. And likewise, I have some goals around what we're going to do as, things are a little bit slower. But I share that to say that the only thing that changed, right? Maybe the reason why things are a little slow now is different than 3 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, is that I have a different outlook on the situation, right? And so I'm controlling my thoughts and my emotions around the things that are right now maybe out of my control.
Yeah. And also we've got to bear in mind that in these situations, many of the situations will be new to us, but we will have some experience and we will have some knowledge and some skills that we will have learned through adversity previously. So we're in a position where we can actually then apply them. And I've spoken to a lot of business owners over the years in terms of my coaching, where they've actually said, look, I've lost everything. I've lost my business. I've lost all the people that I've employed. I've had to make them redundant. I've had to refigure out my finances. I have lost tens of thousands of millions in terms of getting to where I am today. Everything's gone. And I say to them, no, not everything has gone. You've got some experience and some knowledge that you can apply. You know how to work the market. You know how to engage with clients. You know how to build up a business. You know how to do things that other people can't. It's up to you now to go and reapply those and build yourself back up again and build your business up again. It's not going to be the same. It's going to be different. But you've got that capability, probably far better than I will ever have.
Yes. Okay. I love that. I learned something from a friend of mine, Jessica Rodriguez, and she said, you always look for positive proof. And so when you're in an uncertain situation or you feel like you don't know what you're doing, it's worth doing the mental exercise to say, where else in my life has there been something similar that I've pursued, like pushed through, or I've been challenged, or is there a success that I can draw upon to then like really let me focus through something that feels challenging or new. And it was a one little comment that she said to me, and I like held on to that because now I'm always inviting people to look for positive proof. You've done hard things. You've done some similar things before. So it's very similar to what you're saying. And it really changed a lot when I started utilizing that regularly in my business and life as well.
Yeah. And I think the other important thing, and this is a fundamental part of resilience as well, is that you've got a group of people around you, a network of people who can help you. Now, you're not going to go out to your business network and sob on their shoulder because your business has gone bankrupt or gone belly up or however you would like to describe it. You've got your partner for that. You've got certain friends for that. So you've got to choose the people that you interact with, and you've got to choose the people that are going to give you the strength to move forward in the right way. What you've got with your business network are a group of people who will help you, but you've got to determine how they can help you, and you've got to decide how you can utilize the network and work with the network in order to help you to move forward. So,
I'm grinning ear to ear. For those of you that are just listening, you can't see me grinning with what Robin's saying, but I love what you said because when we, on the surface, if you hear emotional intelligence, emotional resilience, it's like it's a solo job. Like I've got to figure this out. But what I heard was it's okay to have tools in your toolbox, such as people that can come around and support you when needed, lift you up, give you advice. I call it your special advisory council. That's how I teach it to my clients, is that you want to have those people that they have a unique strength. You can support them. They can support you, because this isn't, in my opinion, meant to be done all by ourselves. That's a very lonely journey as entrepreneurs and business owners.
no, that's absolutely right. Look, here I sit in Lancashire, which is in Greater Manchester in northwest England. I have a very solid network of business people that I regularly engage with. A lot of that engagement now is on social media. But when I started my business up, I was out at breakfast meetings 2 or 3 times a week, talking with people, sharing with them ideas, listening to them, working with them, and building up relationships with them, which are great relationships that I need now in order to help my business move forward. So I've got legal advice with some lawyers out there. Mm-hmm. I've got an accountant that's come through the networking system. I've got marketeers. I've got people that I can learn my trade from, other coaches, other trainers, other people that work in the field of NLP. And I can learn from them some of the new things that are happening in the marketplace. Those are just some of the things that I can think of off the top of my head. Got a stationery provider. The list is endless. I can't do everything, but I need these people to help me. And when things go wrong, yes, we do tend to look inward, and we do tend to start to really undermine our own credibility by just saying, oh, woe is me, everything's going wrong. And we then start apportioning blame either outwards or inwards. But what we've got to do is just to accept we're in a situation that we don't like. We can't go back and change anything. And what's the point of finding out where it went wrong and who's responsible? Because, let's look to the future. What can we do with it? How can we anticipate the changes that we need to make and prepare for them and plan for them and use our flexibility and adaptability to work with our personal vision, to work with our morals, to work with our values, and to get where we want to go and bring more people along with us?
That's right. So we talked about what emotional intelligence is and what that looks like with emotional resilience. I would love for you to paint a picture of if we're lacking in this skill set a bit and there's room for growth, what might that look like in our businesses? Like, how is that, showing up in challenges if we don't have control of our emotions and manage our mind?
Well, let's go back to our definition of emotional intelligence. It's the way in which you combine your thinking with your feelings in order to make good quality decisions and build relationships. And then look at the other side of that. If we are not thinking straight and we're not controlling our emotions, we will be angry with anybody and everybody. We'll be apportioning blame. Everybody will be unhappy around working with us. We won't be able to make good decisions, and we will destroy relationships along the way. So we'll fall out with people. That's when we're not using our emotional intelligence well, and that would be low emotional intelligence, which will exacerbate and make bad situations even worse.
Right.
So what will happen there is that we will then lower our resilience. And we've got to be very careful here, Amber, and I think it's important to stress this, that there are going to be times through change and through adversity when we go into the depths of despair and we can't make decisions. We find it very difficult to control our emotions because everything is getting very much on top of us. That could be defined as low levels of resilience. I don't like to describe it that way because I think people need to go through that phase in order that they can come out the other side. So they need to recognize that there are going to be times when they will go into the depths of despair. Now, often that's labeled as depression. And I don't like labeling it as depression because if people are depressed, what we've got to do is to recognize that positively and get them and support them to seek the medical advice and support that they need. So it's a case of not fighting it on its own. It's a case of saying, look, I'm highly tense, I'm highly anxious, I need to get some help. Go and get some help, because that is being resilient. Allowing yourself to go through that and for it to get worse is the worst thing that you can do. And that is resilience. Sorry, Amber.
Do not apologize. Like right now, I'm lost for words because I feel like you were meant to have this conversation today. I was just reading an article a few days ago. I was interested in diving deeper into why decision making is difficult. It comes up a lot with my clients. I have a lot of strategies. I talk a lot with my clients about it. And I came upon this article that was explaining that when you're depressed, one of the main symptoms are that you lack the ability to make decisions, that it is very, very difficult. It's emotionally draining, feels like the hardest thing to do. And it could be big things, it could be small things. And when we as people make so many decisions in a day, much less being a business owner and responsible for people, when we make those decisions, we could be depressed and not really realize it, or we could be dealing with anxiety and not really know it. But as you were mentioning before, it's this like chasing your tail is like, well, what came first? Like, are you getting more into that situation because you're not making decisions and so now things are getting worse? Or can we recognize it, like you mentioned, and I just want to echo it because everything you said was perfect, is that, you know, once you've asked yourself why you're not making decisions or why decisions are so difficult, I think it's worth observing to say, like, do I need help? Is there something else going on here that will allow me to show up my best? And I think that's the best thing we can do for ourselves and the people we love in our businesses.
It is. And I think the important thing there is that if people are going through periods of depression, and business owners may have people who are working in their team who are undergoing depression, it can be very, very hard to deal with it because you want to help them and you want to try and make a happy place for them to grow into, but they can't because they are in the pit of despair. And it's a black, dark place. And all you can do is just say, I am here. to support you if you need me. Come and talk. Let me see what I can do to help. And how can I help? And what is it that you need from me? Now, unfortunately, with business owners, we've just got to recognize that that is going to have an impact on the bottom line. But you have employed this person has certain skill sets, and they've got certain capabilities that will help you in your business. Remind them of that and say that they have a special place within the organization. You want them to thrive through that, so that that's the goal you want them to strive towards, not getting better or anything like that. And, putting on a red nose and dancing around the office with a silly hat to create a smile on them is just not going to help. Just give them space.
Yeah.
If they are under stress, what is it that you can do to remove the stress?
So I love everything you've said, and, looking at that in our team members, and everything you said is true for ourselves as business owners, is that it's okay to have grace with yourself and recognize that maybe you're seeing and feeling differently now. And what do you need to reduce the stress and ask for help? Like, everything applies, even if you're finding yourself in this situation or a team member.
Yeah, because it works in a number of different ways. You're there as a business owner, you've also got the responsibility of the people that you've employed that are helping you within your business. So they're not bags of sugar. They've got emotions. You've got to work with them and help them. Now, the majority of times, most people will go through depths of despair. They won't feel particularly good. They just need a bit of positive encouragement, and they need some support. And I think business owners got to learn the difference and apply the levels of support within there. Heck, Amber, I've looked into the pit of despair. It is not nice.
Yeah.
I've never fallen into it, thankfully. But it's kind of got to go with it, run with it, live with it. It does not feel nice. It is most unpleasant. But there is a time in the future where you're not going to feel that way, and things will start getting better.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's switch gears a little bit. I wanted to touch on something we touched on right before we hit record, and that was the connection between this topic here and how that might show up with regards to productivity and time management. And what I had said to you was that what I find when working with my clients is that when they're letting their emotions lead, like the emotion of, often I hear, I'm overwhelmed, or the feeling of, I don't know what to do. And it's like a recorder, a loop, or I don't know what the future holds. And so that's scary. Like, really leaning into the feelings around those statements, whether they're true or not. What I find is that it creates stagnation. It creates procrastination, lack of decision making. And it's very difficult that when you're leading with emotion to make strategic, like you said, sound decisions. And I just wanted to get your input and some advice around that. Like, how can someone recognize they're leading with emotion and balance that back out with, acknowledging those emotions? You said that in the intro, actually, something similar to that, which I thought was great. We're not talking about ignoring emotions, but really, like, how can you have emotions and balance that with sound, strategic thinking?
Well, let me start off by getting rid of a couple of myths. And I think they're important myths to really look at and unpick. The first myth is around emotions, and it's actually taking away the labels of emotions as being negative and positive. Emotions are emotions. We experience emotions for a reason. Emotions contain data. So what we should do first and foremost is to recognize, why am I in this emotional state? Why am I feeling an unpleasant emotion? What is it telling me? How can I utilize the data? I may be feeling angry, but how do I work with that anger? What's making me angry? Why? Anger normally is because somebody's transgressed one of our values. So what is it that they've done? How do I manage that? How do I express myself? How do I work with that emotion? That's just one emotion. And there are, depends upon what academic paper you read, there are anything between 3,000 and 27,000 emotions. So,
oh my goodness, I'm lacking some identifications there. I mean, I thought I had a wide range of emotions, but that is a lot.
it is a lot. You and I have a wide range of emotions, and they mix and blend together. And I think the important thing is just to look at the simple emotions of happiness, surprise, disgust, anger, sadness, and really work with those, and fear, and think, why am I experiencing these emotions? What is it that is causing me to feel the way that I'm feeling? How can I work with it? So that's one thing that I would suggest. The other the other myth that I think we ought to really look at, and it's around your specialist area, around time management. We can't manage time. All we can do is manage the way in which we approach the time that we have got. And if we're looking at it from an emotional and an emotional intelligent perspective, how do we manage our energy? There are certain things that we need to do, whether we like doing them or not. Tackle them when you've got the energy to do it. What time of the day is giving you the best energy to do things? For me, it's first thing in the morning. I can deal with the most contentious email and make a really drastic decision first thing in the morning. Last thing at night, or, at the end of my working day, which is around 5 or 6 o'clock, I'm not in a right fit state to make a decision. So I'll park it and push it on till the next day when I know I can make that decision. So when is it for you that you can make the decisions that you need to make? Recognize your energy patterns, recognize your energy flow, and get them to work for you.
Yes. Now, if I could wave a magic wand and rename time management to energy management, I would. But I feel like not a lot of people know that and understand it. So you kind of had to meet people where they're at. They think it's time management. And then they're going to click on this podcast and they get to listen to Robin and I talk and say, it's not about time management, it's about energy management. And well said. We talk a lot about that here at Productivity Straight Talk. It's both your energy management and also what you're choosing to invest your time in. Not all time is created equal. And it's we all have the same resource. And so it's how are you using that resource and leveraging how we can show up our best. Well said. Hopefully, maybe 5-10 years, it's not time management anymore. And it truly is energy management, and the conversation has shifted.
And I think what we've got to do in that time period is to help people to recognize how they can use pleasant emotions constructively. Because when they are actually using them really, really well, they get into this state of flow, and time seems to stand still, where people can really engage with what it is that they're doing at such a deep level. They can utilize all their skills, they can utilize their capabilities, they can utilize their strengths. Doesn't the world feel good? And it seems to hang there in front of you. How can you strive for more of that? First of all, you've got to be aware of what it is and work towards it. Not easy.
Yes, it is not easy, but I think that that's the work, is finding out. The question I like to propose to my clients is, how do you show up best? And the question is, can also be tweaked of, how do you show up best under whatever it is that they do, because I show up best, you show up best differently with different types of tasks and work that we need to do. So when we think of someone that is creative, like let's just say an interior designer, when I ask them, how do you show up best to design, that's going to be different than how do they show up best to handle their finances and invoicing clients. And when we can listen, and this is my opinion, when we can listen and not judge and then recreate, that's the magic sauce. Like when you can do that on purpose because all we want to do is show up our best and do our best work. But oftentimes I believe we just ignore that and don't really honor what it is we may need to get into that flow state.
That's right. And that then becomes the self-awareness component of emotional intelligence. So it's when people talk about self-awareness, they just think of it very, very superficially. But it's everything that you just said, Amber. It's having that recognition of when the best version of themselves is capable of turning up and doing the best work, getting into that constructive, pleasant emotional state.
Yes. So much of what we talked about today is identifying ways in which we can control how we show up. Today, we didn't talk about any specific challenge because challenges are going to show up differently for all of us in our businesses. And I really enjoyed this conversation, just exploring the fact that we can change our experiences based on changing how, maybe not changing. What would you say? Would you say it's maybe changing how we show up or controlling how we show up in a very purposeful way? I want to make sure I'm choosing my words correctly here. And I think it's a very empowering message because right now, with so much uncertainty, it might feel like you're not empowered to be control of the outcome of your day, much less your business or this year. And when we lean into that thought pattern, I do find that it doesn't serve us well. And so my goal is always to leave our listeners with some strategies and insights to say, like, you got this and you're in control of what your experiences in your business. Do you have any last thoughts? I want to make sure you share anything you want. You've been so wise and such a great conversation, but do you have any last thoughts around emotional intelligence or resilience for our audience?
Well, again, there's a couple of things. You can't become resilient unless you go through adversity. There's a paradox there. You will develop your resilience the more you get exposed to things that you don't like. And I'd like to leave your listeners with one thing that I could be absolutely certain about, and that's that the future is going to be uncertain.
Yes. So if we know it's uncertain, then it's, I guess what I'm coming up with in my mind is like, how do you learn to dance with that? How do you learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable?
I wouldn't want to add anything more to that, Amber.
All right, awesome. Well, you've been amazing. Well, I want to make sure our listeners can follow you, reach out to you. So if you can share how they can do that. And then also, I think you have some special training or offer for our listeners here today.
I do. You can find me at ei4change.com, EI, emotional intelligence. So ei4change.com. And that will give you the opportunity to be able to find out more about the work that I do with my team and how we work in the field of emotional intelligence. But what I've got for everybody is an opportunity to go away and do some learning. I have a number of emotional intelligence courses, and I've put together a URL for people so that they can access my mindfulness course at no charge. I'll give you the URL in a minute, but mindfulness is, again, being aware in the present moment in a non-judgmental way in order that you can make good quality decisions. It's not about going into a trance. It's not about meditating to a point where you can't do anything else. Meditation forms a part of mindfulness if you want it to, and if you can get it to work for you. So the course can be found at the URL www.emotional.intelligence.courses/mindfulness. And that will get you free access to my Working with Mindfulness course.
Oh, that's excellent. I love how you defined mindfulness and, debunked another myth for us here today. I love that because who doesn't want to be able to be non-judgmental of themselves and make good decisions? We will be linking this out in the show notes. I'll share it again in the outro so everybody can grab that and make sure that they get it, the link to be able to take you up on that offer. Robin, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for such an insightful and just very timely conversation for me. I'll speak for myself. This was a really, really amazing. Thank you so much.
It's been wonderful, Amber. Thank you.
I have loved having you listen to this episode of Productivity Straight Talk. And I sure hope you have found today's episode to be insightful and valuable. But I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. I think a great next place to take action if you're looking to improve your emotional resilience, emotional intelligence, is to go grab the resource that Robin provided for us. We will be sharing that link out. It's quite a long link, so we'll be sharing that link out in the show notes over at amberdelagarza.com/256, or you can tap the show notes wherever you're listening to this episode. I have found that emotional intelligence and emotional resilience and the commitment to the journey of improving in those areas has had such an impact on my business, but also my personal life. And I do believe that this is a parallel journey, meaning while you're going to go learn the skill sets of marketing or decision making or hiring or leading your team and so many of the topics we talk about here at Productivity Straight Talk, I believe that pursuing the journey of always improving upon your emotional intelligence is a sure winner. This is one of those skill sets that show up in every part of our lives, and especially our personal relationships, as well as our business and leading our team and how we show up with all of those people that rely on us, our clients, our team members. So whether this is the first time you've heard language around emotional resilience or emotional intelligence, or you've heard it before, I hope this inspires you to take action to continually improve upon those skill sets. I would love to just take a moment and tell you how thankful and grateful I am for each and every one of you who listens in to Productivity Straight Talk. You have been such a great inspiration and support, and I love serving you through this podcast. If you are in the United States, this week is Thanksgiving, and it's a great time for us to stop and pause and think about what we're thankful and grateful for. And when I'm doing that, I am thinking of you and how grateful and thankful I am that you tune in each week to Productivity Straight Talk. And as we close out, I'm going to ask you to do 3 things. Number 1, if you have not already subscribed to Productivity Straight Talk, perhaps you're new, hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode. 2, I would love for you to share this episode with someone that you think it would be valuable for. I really, really appreciate that support, but I also know that conversations like this can have such a huge impact. And then lastly, if you are thinking about wanting coaching and support in your business in the coming new year, then now is the time for us to chat. I really want to speak with you just to explore what it would be like having me partner with you in your business and coach privately on an ongoing basis around productivity, time management, leading your team, business decisions, strategy. If you are interested, I would love for you to head on over to amberdelagarza.com/call. Let's get a call, let's have a conversation, and see if working together is the next right fit. It is not too early. If we talk now, we're going to be working together in January of next year. So don't hesitate to jump on a call with me. So that's my straight talk for you today. Until next time, have a productive week.